Well, thank you for joining us and finding time. I have shared your amazing Healed Result work. Guys, if
Yes,
you
thank
don't
you.
believe me, it's really true. If you go to our feed or to Kim Loy Instagram account, you can see unfiltered, there is no Photoshop, nothing. It's actual videos of the Healed Result of Kim Loy hyperrealistic eyebrows hair strokes. So this is very important because healed brows is a real brow. So all these beautiful, super photoshopped images
Yeah.
of fresh brows is fantastic, but
Mm,
this is not real. And to achieve
absolutely.
such a perfect healed result, it's really something. This is a true art. But I think it's not just art. I think it's a knowledge,
Yeah.
which, by the way, just since you're all here, Kim Loy have a very special blueprint about healed hair strokes, which you can find in our link in bio. I put the link there, so you can find it very easily where she explained. Well, you better say what it is exactly. Yes.
Yeah, so it's called the Heal Result Blueprint, and I created it about a year ago because I asked my audience what was the most pressing thing that they wanted to know. And I think artists now, new trainers, intermediate, advanced trainers, they're savvy. They're less um, they're less concerned now with the fresh work. Everyone really wants that healed result. So people, it's less about the front end training. They want to know like how to make it look good long term. So that's why I created the blueprint. So in that blueprint, I'm covering the main variables as I see it. That means we can get really great, crisp, healed hair stroke work. So it's $47. So you can, if you click the link in amiea or link in my bio, you can buy that and get access straight away.
Oh, thank you very much. So yeah, link in bio, and it's there. You can find it all there. But what would you say would be your to start with your top, let's say, three ingredients for the perfect healed crisp hair stroke?
Yeah, so firstly, pigment. So crucial to understand your pigments, like what is in the bottle. And once you know your pigments, that determines the technique that you're adopting for that particular pigment, because the same technique does not work for all pigments out there. You need to be able to adapt, and your level of saturation as well. So that you can call that depth, pressure, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, it's how saturated you're able to get that stroke. And so those three variables and understanding how to alter them for different skin types, that's what determines a really great crisp peel result.
Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly how it is. And since we are talking about cartridges and skin, obviously it would be great to know. I know you're working more with liners, 0.30 or 0.35, but I think it's best if you can explain your top cartridges choice for the
Yeah.
perfect healed hair stroke result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 99% of my work is performed with one round liners. And the cartridge that I've been using for a really long time, and I love them, are the capillary cartridges. And I use those in the various different sizes for the capillary. Again, depending on the skin type that I'm working on and the thickness of the stroke that I want to achieve. But most of my work is with a one round liner. And the cartridge that you choose is also really important. And I've learned this lesson over working with lots of different needles, different cartridges, different brands. Stability for me is crucial because I specialize in like the crisp hair stroke. I need a really stable needle. And I found that stability with the capillary needle cartridge. Like it doesn't move, it doesn't wobble so much in the cartridge, which is really important for crisp. And also with the I can call it like the screw feature with
Yeah.
inside the cartridge. That's how I explain it to people. It's like a screw feature. It has the ability to like draw up the pigment into the cartridge and keep it there, which again is really important when you're doing detailed work because it has two benefits as I see it. It doesn't spill out onto the skin when you're working. Like you work with some cartridges and it's just like the pigment's pouring out of the needle nozzle, which is frustrating. So it holds it in and distributes it evenly. But also it means you have to dip less. So when I'm doing like my fine detail work, I can stay on the skin for a really long time without having to like leave, dip, and then come back again. So that's why I really like the capillary one round liners.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, what would you say the main difference between capillary and the regular ordinary liner cartridges?
I think that's just it. It's the screw feature. It's the ability for it to like draw up the pigment, hold it in there, and then make sure that it doesn't spill out onto the skin. Those are the two main reasons I really like to use it.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you mentioned when we spoke to you before, you mainly go for 0.30 or 0.35
Yeah.
diameter. So when do you choose, how do you know which diameter to take? Like, what is your preferences?
Yeah, so my go-to is usually a 30. I'm able to create nice fine lines that way without over traumatizing the skin. I will bump up to a 3.5 or even a 40 if the skin becomes thick and oily. If it's oily, thick skin, that's when I would choose a thicker needle. To really implant that pigment quickly. But also, if I'm working with a client who has very thick, coarse, dark hair, I want to be able to create a thicker, more saturated stroke for that person to coincide with their natural hair. With if you've got someone with very fine light hair, you're not going to want to create a thick stroke. But if you've got someone with thick natural hair, you're not going to want to create a super fine stroke for them. Like, you need to be able to adapt to suit what they naturally have.
Thank you. And obviously, it's fair to ask about tapers because it's not all about just the diameters. We also have different tapers.
Yeah.
So, in your experience, how does the taper affect influence pigment implantation and healed results?
Yeah. So most of my work I do with a long taper, just because again I like is low trauma and I can create nice fine lines with that. I do mix it up with a short taper or a medium taper when required. So for example, on someone with oily skin, I need to be able to open that skin wider as I'm working to implant the pigment quicker. And so then I would opt for a short taper or a medium taper on that skin. But interestingly, I also do this on very delicate skin as well. So both spectrums, either really oily skin or really fine skin. And it sounds counterintuitive to use a thicker diameter on thin skin as well. But what I found with working on mature thin skin is that we need to do the work quickly, because that skin, it gets inflamed really quickly. It's super fine, it's super thin. And so if we can use a diameter that's a bit thicker, we can implant the pigment quicker. And I'm able to do better work with a short taper or medium taper on mature thin skin too.
So much to take in, but obviously it's very interesting to hear that yes, you prefer long taper, which is important to remember. So which you refer, it's less trauma to the skin. And actually, our capillary cartridges are the long tapers, which obviously worth mentioning. And by the way, thank you for all the comments. That's where I'm looking, and thank you so much for. I'm loving amiea pigments. All thanks to you, Kim. It's so lovely. Thank you.
Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. Also, someone just said that I read that we already bought your Big Glam, I'm sorry if it's Big Glam, yeah. So I just bought the blueprint. It's amazing. Lots of tips and tricks. Thank you so much. So if you have any other questions, please just drop them here. Or if you miss it out, you can still comment and we'll make sure we answer them later. So thank you so much for all your love and attention. So just since you mentioned a mature skin, so can we just have like one of your perfect recipe? Let's talk about dry, oily, mature, and thin. I think we can put it in the same category. So if we start with oily skin, dry skin, and then we move to mature, thin skin, what would be your recipe of choice of diameter, taper, needle, and maybe with some other secrets for the healed result?
Okay, so with oily skin, it's very challenging to get the pigment into that skin as you're working. And so we need to choose a needle that enables us to get it in quickly without having to. So if you're, for example, let me give you the worst case scenario. If you picked a really fine needle, like a 0.20 or 0.25 long taper, and you were working with that on oily skin, you would have to like go over that stroke again and again and again, like too many times to get the pigment in. So we need a bigger needle, wider needle to get the pigment in quickly. So you can do that with a thicken, so 0.35 long taper, or choose a medium taper, short taper. Alternatively, you can opt for a flat or a magnum. So like a configuration of needles. So I still like to use needles in a line. So that would be the flat or the magnum. You can use 3-round liners, but it creates a much thicker stroke. So I still like to keep the thin fine line. So I often use flats, 5 flat or a 7 mag on oily skin to implant the pigment quickly. The same is true for mature skin as well. Again, like I said, we need to be able to work quickly on that skin type. And sometimes you'll find if you have a mature client where the skin like is bleeding a lot because it's very thin, you choose a one round liner, you start working in skin and it's just bleeding out. A good solution for that again is to opt for a flat or a magnum. The reason being is because it gives us that friction on top of the skin. So if you imagine if you have a one round liner, it's very sharp, it's going to go straight through the skin. Whereas if you have a 4 or 5 flat, it's like walking on snow with skis or walking on snow with a stilts. You know, with stilts you're going to go straight through it. With skis you stay on top of the snow, and the same is the same with skin. You've got the friction on top, so you can implant the pigment quickly without causing too much trauma and going too deep in that skin.
And if we refer to Magnum, because you mentioned that sometimes you use Magnum, obviously the technique have to change. What do you say about that?
Yeah, magnums I often use on if somebody's got a very thick, wide brow naturally, and we've got lots of surface area to cover. So male brows would be typical of this. I'll often choose a magnum and do like a shaded technique over the brow because I can work quite quickly doing that technique, and we've got lots of area to fill. We want it to be really fluffy, and with the magnum the needles are spaced a bit wider apart, and so to do that shaded technique we get like a nice like soft shaded stroke with the magnum, but we can still saturate it quite well with the magnum. But yeah, like I said, usually I'll use that for men or any women who have like naturally very thick brows.
And is there any situation when, for instance, you start work with a 0.30 liner and when you have to switch it to 0.35 or to liners and to magnum? Is it ever happened to you?
Yeah, I'll often switch, and it's okay to do that during the treatment. I think too often we'll just like stick with what we've got and then panic and try and work harder. It's okay to stop and just say, hey, I'm just going to go pick another needle. Clients are usually, they're always okay with that. But yeah, the times that I would switch is if I'm struggling to get the pigment in. So say if the skin has surprisingly is a lot thicker than I visually thought it would be, and then I would switch to a thicker needle or a thicker diameter during the treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so exactly. So don't be scared about that. If you have to switch, but in your opinion, would you start, let's say, if you're not sure, so you start, let's say, from 0.30, and then if you cannot get pigment in, you start topping up, and you would change to this one, which one?
Correct. My go-to is always generally a one round liner, 0.30 capillary needle. That's generally my go-to, and then I'll change it if the skin is not responding well to that. But I'll often have 2 machines on the go as well. So I'll have like one machine which I'll use for the very thin area here. So us, the brows, as we know, the skin's very delicate here, and we want to get fine lines in this area. So I'll use like a thicker needle or a lighter pigment here. And then when I get to like the fleshy, oily part of the brow, which is harder to work the pigment in, then I will use my like thicker needle, cartridge, and then a darker pigment as well. So it's okay to have 2 machines on the go as well.
And assume a stronger machine. So one would be 3.5, I know your favorite, H2, and then you would have like 2.5 stroke length for the sensitive areas.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Generally for the lighter areas, I'll have like a wireless machine. I'm using both of the artist machines at the moment. But I'll have a wireless one and then a wired one for the power.
Yeah, because our H3 comes in 2.5 and 3.0 stroke length, and also the new amiea Pulse as well is coming 2.5, but it's also going to be 3.0 stroke length as well. You know what? I know you're doing a lot of trainings as well, and I see amazing work of your students, and obviously congratulations to you. You do a great training, so if you need to train, please contact Kim. She's absolutely amazing in what she does. What would you say the most common mistake artists make when working on difficult skin, which 100% will affect the healed result? Because when it's fresh, it's all look fantastic, but maybe somehow you already know, like, it's not gonna be good.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. There's probably not just one main mistake, but I think over traumatizing the skin. So I think a lot of artists initially they try and use a really thin needle, so 0.20, 0.25, which is okay and fine to use if you know how to saturate that stroke. But if you're not quite there yet, you're going to have to work way too hard to get the pigment in. So over traumatization, I think, is a downfall. And yeah, not understanding which needle to use for which skin type, and just not saturating the strokes enough for it to be able to stay long term and get a good healed result from it.
So yeah, it's all come with practice.
Comes with practice, yeah, and knowledge and support and feedback is really important, because it's, this is a difficult thing to do, and it's really hard when you're just left alone to try and work these things out by yourself, which is where you have good coaching, good training, but have that support and feedback from your trainer as well. That's really helpful.
And now is about more technical thing. Like, for instance, is machine voltage, it's also interact with a cartridge choice. For instance, if you work with 0.30 or 0.35 or with Magnum or with liners, do you change the voltage or it stay usually the same?
Yeah, interestingly, I don't. I tend to stick with just the 1 voltage. That's probably the one thing I don't mess around with that much. I like to work with quite a slow speed. And that works well for me. I think it gives me good control when the machine's moving slowly. So occasionally I'll bump it up if I like the speed. I make it go faster. If I'm struggling to get the pigment in, and I know that a faster speed will help me deposit the pigment. But generally, I found my sweet spot. I'm using the artist machine. It's it's a 0.2. So I don't know exactly know what the voltage of that is. Yeah. But usually it's but it would be between a 5 and 5.5.
Yeah, actually, it's a new amiea poles have voltage and hertz, so you can actually switch between them. So it's easy for you to read. Because we had this issue before when someone doesn't understand hertz, someone don't understand voltage, so it will be actually a good top up. But would you say you change the hand movements when you work with a different type of needles, with liners or single needles or magnums? Yeah. Would you change? You do?
Yes, you do. Yeah, with the 1 round liner, I'm using what I call the crisp stroke technique, whereas I just enter the skin and I just move really slowly up and down the stroke. So the tip of the needle really doesn't come out the skin that much. When I'm working with a flat or a magnum, we adopt more of an etching technique with that. So we're brushing the skin and depositing the pigment that way. So similar to when you do a shaded powder brow shading, but just a bit more etching. So yeah, you need to be able to adapt depending on the cartridge.
And for some who just join us, we're talking about cartridges in the skin for the perfect heal result with Kim Loy. So please stay here, but it's also going to be safe. So this is actually a really great technique. And also, talking about the stretching, do you adjust the stretching depending on the cartridge size or cartridge type?
No, I mean, a good 3-point stretch is mandatory no matter what you're doing. So always have a really great 3-point stretch. At no point during the treatment should that skin not be stretched, regardless of the technique that you're adopting. Especially though, if you're trying to do a crisp, you need to really stretch the skin out.
And, since you are absolutely amazing in hyper-realistic strokes. I saw your work personally at Eyebrow Festival. You did male brow, I believe it was alopecia, which was absolutely amazing. You had so much attention and the model was so happy. I think in the beginning he was very stiff, but somehow after it's the reaction on his face, it was absolutely amazing. So what made you or helped you to master your not just healed, the hyperrealism technique?
I find it fascinating. I feel like every day is a lesson day, because no 2 faces are the same, no eyebrows are the same, no hair growth is the same, no desires are the same. And so to be able to, you have a fresh canvas every client, and you have to create something bespoke for that individual person. It's not I've got one pattern, I'm just going to put that on everybody. It's not like that. It's about crafting something unique every time. And I just find it really interesting, and it keeps me on my toes. It's challenging. And I think that's what makes you a good artist, when you really, you find something gripping and you just want to get better and you want the best for your clients. That's why I think I love it so much.
Do you have any artistic background though? Because obviously, like you said, you're creating a different pattern for everyone.
Yeah, but me personally, no. But my family are artists, and my mom's a very good artist. My sister's a graphic designer, so like it kind of runs in the family. So it was maybe always there. I just never, yeah, utilized it until I got into permanent makeup.
So basically, it's not too late, and you don't have to be an artist or be the, to start to do hyperrealism. So it
These,
just,
yeah, these are skills that everyone can learn, you know. It's once you've got the fundamentals down of, yes, having a catalogue of patterns that you can refer to, but then understanding how to implant the pigment, get the crisp stroke, do the shaded stroke, and then as time goes on, the more you do, you'll just learn to adapt the patterns you've got to each individual client. So it just comes with practice and time.
yeah.
But yeah, I do believe it's something that anyone can learn to do.
And you know what fascinates me? That you have a different representation of hyperrealism brows, loads of heel result on your Instagram, and you pretty much able to do it on everyone, on more mature skin, on oily skin. So it's there's pretty much will be no cases when you say no, I cannot do hyperrealism on you, or there is still some places when you have to say no.
There are still cases where I say no. I think when the client comes in, so firstly, if there's old visible permanent makeup, that's an absolute no from me. That needs to be removed first before it works, because I've tried it countless times on the top of old permanent makeup. It just doesn't work. We can't get the result that the client sees on our Instagram. So I would rather be honest and say it's not possible. And also, if the client has very red complexion, like very red, I've tried it. It doesn't work on that skin either. Just because I'm doing those fine lines, if it's just going to bleed out too much, then that's going to be challenging. So there are definitely times when it's not possible, but it's rare. It's not that many people can't have it. Is suitable for most, but I do think it's important. So I do make a big thing of showing my heel work, because it's important for people to see that. But if you're part of my training courses, so in the Heal Results Blueprint, for example, I show work that hasn't healed so well, because I think that's also important to show, because let's not pretend that it works perfectly every time, and it's okay when that happens. It's just learning how to make it improve for next time. So that's why I show a lot of healed work.
Yeah, and I think it was an era when all you see on Instagram is this perfect artistic.
It's not helpful.
Yeah, it's not helpful. And I have few of my friends who personally went from my recommendation. I recommended some artists who I know for sure done amazing work in past. But yes, we don't have this fancy retoucher. We just post what it is, realistic. And yeah, maybe it doesn't look so good, because 90% of artists now are posting a lot of very, very photoshopped work. So my friend decided to chose the artists who actually have this type of work. Yeah, it was great when it was fresh. When it healed, it was awful red, blue. And so, well, you see, I told you, it's a thing. It's like all fresh work. But I think the end consumer, we don't understand that. It's very hard. And I think it's good to educate them. And what actually impressed me in your hyperrealism work, it was another way when hyperrealism started. It was a little bit too much hyperrealism, you know what I mean? It's a lot, and I thought it's realistic, but it wasn't realistic, which what I find your pattern, which is another question I wanted to ask, how you make this realism brows actually hyperrealism without being looking too fake, It's like, because your pattern, I thought it's realistic, but it does look realistic, and I think this is a fine line which is some artists are struggling to find.
Yeah. Well, so I teach. There's 4 key patterns that I teach. They're like the basic patterns for you to call upon, and I call it the high spine, medium spine, low spine, and a no spine pattern as well. And then there's man brow as well, so 5. So I teach that in the training. But once you understand how to construct that pattern, it's about learning how to look at somebody and say, oh, hey, well, this client's hair growth points towards her temple. It's not pointing up, it's not pointing down. And so for her, the medium spine pattern would be suitable. So that's what you choose. But then it's about adapting the number of strokes you do according to that client. So for example, if she doesn't have much of her natural hair, you're going to want to do a lot more strokes than if she didn't have any hair at all. Sorry, as if she had like too much hair, because
Yeah,
then you would do
yeah,
less strokes.
yeah.
So it's about changing what you're doing every time according to that unique client. And yeah, it's not about going crazy with like doing really big strokes at the front and like lows underneath. It's like enhancing. We're always trying to enhance what they naturally have, rather
Mhm.
than giving them something crazy that they're not going to be that happy with.
And this is exactly why you mentioned earlier you don't have an exact template, so you are changing it, adapting to a different clients, which
Yeah.
I think that's why you're also so amazing at the male brows, because some artists who have a certain template were actually struggling to do male brows, and that's why male brows is absolutely brilliant. I mean, everything
Uh,
else too, but this was really impressive because both times I saw it, you did it on a alopecia client, and it was
yeah.
something incredible. So is
Yeah.
there any special maintenance or how to maintain crisp hair stroke over time?
Yeah, so I find um, most clients, they're wanting to come back after a year and a half, 2 years to have it touched up again. So by that point, because I use predominantly the amiea Evo 2 pigments, it has like a really nice soft fade over years. And then after 2 years, they like to have it topped up. But to get a long-term crisp stroke brow, saturation is the key. So a fine line, but saturated enough for it to stay long term. And spacing between the strokes is really important as well, so that after, when it does start to break down in the skin, it doesn't blur together. We need to
Mhm,
have the
mhm,
space.
mhm. And do you have any also special aftercare, and also how often you do the retouch, like after 1 year, or what usually your
Uh,
refresh work is?
yeah, my aftercare is pretty simple. So I actually do get them to I give them a soap and get them to clean it with the soap. I know there's a lot of dry healing advice out there, but my methodology is always, if you cut your hand or if you cut your face, you wouldn't not wash it for 2 weeks. You know,
Yeah.
you'd want to keep that wound clean. And the same is true for, I believe, permanent makeup. You know, we're causing a lot of trauma over the period of an hour, 2 hours when we're tattooing. That person needs to keep that open skin clean. And so gently cleanse them with wet cotton pad, bit of soap, twice a day, and then I give them like a healing balm to apply afterwards.
Mhm.
And I find I get really nice healed results with that. And with the touch up, they can come back for a 4 to 6 week touch up if they want it. I make it optional because not everybody needs or wants that. And then after that, it would be year and a half, 2 years, depending on the skin type.
I mean, that's wonderful. Year and a year and a half, considering it's a hair strokes. I mean, obviously the oily skin probably gonna last less, would you
Yeah.
say? Mhm.
Yeah, with really oily skin, up to a year. So by the year mark, they're going to want to come back for a touch up. But with oily skin, I tend to use a stronger pigment as well,
Mhm.
so it will last longer for them.
Do you ever use organic pigments for the hair strokes, or
In those situations, yes,
for
yeah.
the
If the
oily
skin's
skin?
really oily, yeah. So I mean, I think if you follow me for some time, you'll know that I do prefer to use hybrid pigments.
Mhm.
I like the soft
Yeah,
fade. That's just the way
yeah.
I like to work. But yes, with oily skin, that person also wants it to stay long term. So in those situations, I will use an organic pigment, but I will communicate with them heavily that, okay, well, this is a very strong pigment. It's going to be there a super long time, and they're usually okay with that.
Mhm. And if you just, if someone who hasn't done hyper realistic brows, or obviously hair stroke few those, but they want to move to hyper realistic brows, what would you say for the beginners would be the top, the choice of the cartridges we have to start with? Because obviously you need to learn and you need to get used to the cartridges. So if you start straight away with a wide variety, I think it can go a little bit crazy. And we at the
Yeah,
Mia have a lot of different
absolutely.
configuration. Yeah. So what cartridge setup you would recommend for the beginners?
Just keep it simple. One round liner, 0.30 capillary,
Long taper.
long taper. Yeah, you
Is
can't go
any
wrong with
caution?
that.
Is any cautions we have to have working with long taper, or it's actually going to be easier for them with a long taper? Because I assume we also see the needle better and so on.
Say that again. Sorry, what was the
The
question?
question is would you say with a long taper, is any precautions we have to follow when working with a long taper, or it's actually going to make your life easier compared to short and medium
Yeah,
tapers?
the only thing to watch out for is when you're working on that really fine, delicate skin with a long
Mhm,
taper,
mhm,
or really oily skin. in those situations, you'd probably want a medium taper, if not a short taper. But other than that, everyone in between, a long taper, it would be fine.
Yeah, and also don't forget the blueprint. So for beginners, it's going to be something very, very helpful. And also, Kim have a special 10% discount on shopamea.com, which is KimL10. So you get 10% on all products on shopamea.com website. And just a last question for you as well. What would be your personal non-negotiable for perfect healed result brows?
Oh, perfect non-negotiable. It would. There's so many to choose from. It would probably be pigment choice. I think that has to be my number one, followed by cartridge selection, needle selection. But yeah, if you have a good quality pigment and you can saturate it, you can get good long-term healed results with that.
And you mean long taper suitable for oily skin? There's just one question. Thank you for the question, by the way. So you mean long taper is suitable for oily skin? The question is long.
Yeah, so with oily skin, I usually use a medium or a short taper because you want to open up the skin a bit more to get the pigment in. You can't. So there's different spectrums of oily. You know, some are slightly oily, some people are very oily. So it depends where the client is on that spectrum of oiliness. But if you're at the higher end, if it's very thick, very oily, you're probably going to want to opt for a short or medium taper. But if it's not so oily, you can have a long taper.
And also there is another question. Thank you for the answer. For Big Glam, is there a particular brand soap you can recommend?
Oh, I just use a neutral soap, so no perfume, no colors, no additives, just like a very plain neutral soap so it doesn't irritate the skin.
And if anyone else have more questions, please let us know. And yeah, it was so much information. I'm actually, I'm going to rewatch it because I'm also learning a lot watching that, because there's so many different, techniques. But then you really have a very a different view, which I hope all of you found very beneficial. So please make sure, give Kim some love. Please follow her Instagram account. Also check the link with the blueprint. It's really full of very valuable information. And we are very, very grateful for your time, for your knowledge, for sharing with us. And I think it's so important that you are really showing the work as it is, and it's absolutely amazing. So if anyone have not had chance to join this live, I understand the time difference. If you have a question, please drop the comment under this live, and also it will be saved on YouTube, and we will make sure we answer you over time. And just one more question, if you don't mind, Kim.
No.
Sorry. Let me see. Sorry, I missed the conversation about RLT and RLL, and it's about RLB needles. RLT.
Not sure what they are. What's an RLB needle?
Round long taper and round L. If you can clarify, it would be we will be very grateful. Brow expert by Urmi. So we're talking about cartridges and skin for the perfect hair stroke healed result. And so basically the top choices of tapers is a long taper for Kim. And I don't know what exactly your question was. So please, if you can just clarify, we will make sure we answer it to you. We are very welcome. Thank you for all your love and for all your comments. It's so nice to have you here. And Kim, I'm so grateful for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Oh, it's amazing. And also I'm looking forward. We're gonna create the short reels with all these questions answered and break down to the point, which is also gonna be beneficial for our viewers. Because I thought it's amazing that we have so many different cartridges configuration, but I think somehow also some artists are getting lost. So that's why it's important to have this expert opinion. So well, thank you so much, Kim. I'll let you go carry on with your day. So nice to see you. Thank you everyone for joining.
Bye everybody. Thanks for joining. See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.